Hey VCs, Matt, how is everybody today? Used to be a show called Ready Steady Go. Don't know if you remember it back in the 60s. Probably not. I believe that was over in England, not in America. It's kind of like Shindig or American Bandstand over there. Um, there's a reason I mention that is just a heads up. There's a website and they have their own YouTube channel. Also, if you, like me, love the 60s girl group sound, it's called ReadySteadyGirls.com, I suppose. Ready Steady Girls. They've got a channel on YouTube now. They not so much the American acts because there's other places for that, but they focus on the that's why I showed this France Gall, French Yee Yee Pop. They focus on the French, British, German, Italian, and other European and some of the Japanese girl singers and girl groups that were around back in 60 to 67 roughly, but 70 really, I guess. 60 to 70 focuses on mainly the 63, 64, 65 through about 67 period. Uh, so go check that out if you're interested. Ready Steady Girls, if you like the girl group sound, it's and you're not familiar with French and German and Italian take on all that. It's some of it's kind of cheesy and campy. It's like the American girl group sound, but it's also like its own thing in a way. A little cheesy and campy, some of it. Some of it is brilliant beyond belief and wonderful. Mixed bag, but a lot of fun. It's almost like there's a whole other 60s out there that you may not even know about. So you might do yourself a favor and check that out. So yeah, what I was mainly coming on for today was Travis Robinson 179. Check his channel out if you haven't already. He's a good guy. He's not sure how long he's been on the VC, but he did a just asking for, it's not a contest. He just wanted people to show some of their favorite album covers. I don't know if that's been done before. I'm thinking probably it has. He wasn't sure, thought it probably had been too, but just thought it'd be a good time to do it again or do it for the first time if it hadn't been. So favorite album covers, just and I've got a big bunch of them here. So one thing is some of my favorite album covers I don't have. I do have Pink Floyd Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Don't have it on vinyl, have it on CD, and I forgot to get it. But you know what that looks like, and if you don't, you can look it up. But that's one of my favorite. Uh, Two of Pink Floyd's that I don't have that I really like the covers is Adam Hart Mother, can't go wrong with a cow on the cover, and Animals with the pig floating over, I think that's called Battersea Power Station. Uh, kind of neat. They put the pig up there and took the pictures, and the pig broke free from its tether and floated all over England for a couple of weeks or so, and people were chasing it around, and they finally, I guess Queen Elizabeth called out the Royal Army or the Knights of the Round Table or James Bond or something to shoot it down, or either that or it finally just landed and probably crashed into somebody. But anyway, that's a cool album cover. I don't have that, Animals or Adam Hart Mother. So I do have a Pink Floyd album in here somewhere, and I'll get to that. But yeah, I wanted to real quick go through some of the CDs that are just because I don't have them on album cover, on vinyl, I mean. So Talk Show by the Go-Go's. It's really, that's about as 1984 as you can get, but I like the colors and the cover, and that's my favorite Go-Go CD. The other two are really good too, but that's my favorite. And Beauty and the Beat's got a cool cover too, but I always preferred that one. Surprised I don't have this on vinyl, but I don't. My favorite Dylan album cover got Sue's. I never can pronounce her last name. Rotolo. She wrote a book about 3 years ago, and sadly she passed away about a year or so ago. But that was his girlfriend at the time, fetching young girl. And but I just always loved that album cover there. And Dylan has several, but his first album cover I really like, the one where he's holding the guitar, he's got the cap on, looks like he's about 15. Um, and um, the Nashville Skyline, I like that one a lot. Just went blank there, but this is my favorite Dylan album too. So, but I love that cover. So Okay, this is a guy named Duke Pearson, Sweet Honey Bee. One I really want to get on vinyl also. I don't know, the glare's showing up on that. It's a jazz album from 1966. It's one of my favorite jazz albums, and if you like jazz and you're not familiar with it, it's worth checking out. Kind of fun, upbeat music. If you're not into jazz or don't have any jazz, but you're thinking about looking into it, this is a good starter point because it's not a lot of jazz can be kind of daunting, and this is a really tuneful and fun album. So Duke Pearson, Sweet Honey Bee, and the cover I like just because if you're familiar with this album, it just epitomizes the music in the inside on the CD or album. This may be my favorite album cover of all time. London Calling by the Clash. No longer have this on vinyl either, unfortunately. Mick Jones busting up his bass just sort of epitomizes the spirit of rock and roll and punk rock and garage rock and all that. Of course, this is a take on Elvis Presley's first album. I think I'd have to look, but I think they changed the colors where it's green where it says Elvis and pink or whatever that is, salmon where it says Presley, but that's a great album cover too, but that may be my favorite album cover of all time. My second favorite album of all time, and I was always like that cover. I'm not sure what these circle things are, if that's a light reflection in the water or what they're doing there, but Kinks of the Village Green Preservation Society, kind of like the back of that too. So yeah, there's the CDs out of the way. Albums. Here's Little Richard, and doesn't that just sum up Little Richard perfectly? The shot they get on there, that's his debut album, I believe. Great record. If you don't have that in your collection, you need it. Miles Davis. If you're just looking to get into jazz, this may not be the one to start with. It's a great album, but it's a little tricky. Might take a little time to get into, but I love that cover. Whoever this woman is here, and here's Miles trying to pick her up, probably. So jazz albums, I think by far have the best covers. Even though there's a lot of great rock and roll and other album covers, but I think jazz, especially those Blue Note records, they just have the best covers. Calexico, this is a Record Store Day live album from a few years ago. Spirituoso. They played. They're a little two-piece or three-piece band. They're still around. Pretty good band, kind of spaghetti western and Tejano and a little bit of folk and rock type music. They played with a symphony in Albuquerque, I believe, and I guess that's the Symphony Hall. It's just a black and white, just kind of a neat shot, I think. I always like that. It's a good album too, as far as looking for some good recent music. I don't know if you can still find it because it was a Record Store Day thing, but if you can, it's worth getting. Sly and the Family Stone, Fresh. Great album. I like his first 5 or so albums. Probably better than this, but this is a great album. But this is just just always like that cover. He seems pretty happy there, even though at that point in his life he probably wasn't all that happy, but kind of a neat cover. This is also a new band, newish band, and they are, let me set that there for a second. I gotta do something on that. Sinatra, Watertown, got the cover is the outline of the town. This is his album from 1969, one of his best albums, and unfortunately it didn't do too well, so I don't know how often he performed songs from this. There's nothing, every song on here is great, but there's no hits per se that I remember ever hearing on the radio or anything, and it's a shame this didn't do that well because it's kind of a concept album about a man who loses his wife and so forth, but great album. If you can find it, pick it up. Just always like that cover. Probably my favorite Sinatra album. Here's yet another new album, and one of the 2 albums that I would consider truly great of the last 30 years or so. Stone Rolling, by Raphael Sadiq, and I know there's probably got a glare on it. Looks like a high school auditorium pep rally with Sadiq playing live. Uh, Not a bad song on this album, and that's rare even among the great albums. Uh, go a little further back in time. One of the great soul album covers of all times, Otis Blue. Not sure who this girl is, but just kind of the quintessential 60s girl in my mind. Uh, neat picture there. So yeah, and a great album too. It's here we go with Pink Floyd. I was talking about Umaguma or Umaguma. I don't know how. Take your pick. Got the GG soundtrack there. I always thought that was kind of cool. These letters spelling out Pink Floyd, and how the band just sort of collapses and disappears on themselves into infinity, going back here. So always thought that was kind of cool. And then on the back you've got their equipment set out in the middle of the road there. This album is, truth be told, awful, but I really like it, even though it's not a very good album. I got to be in the mood, but every once in a while I'm in the mood and nothing else will do. I mean, it's probably better than anything that's in the top 25 this week as far as that goes, but it's far from their best. But I like it. One of those guilty pleasure albums, the Pink Floyd, Curtis Live. Just love that shot of him with the, what's that, a Telecaster, I guess he's playing. He's a great guitar player, great singer. Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions. This is a great album too. Got to get some Curtis. He's can't go wrong with Curtis. My second favorite group of all time, the Kinks. Kinks Controversy. Just always loved this album cover. This is a really cheap, it's a flimsy sleeve. It's almost made out of paper, but got this 20, 30 years ago. Picked a copy of this up. But I always like that. I don't know what he's playing here. Dave's playing like a Gretsch, I guess, or a Guild, maybe says. I don't know. But just like the layout on that. And Slater Kinney did an album where they kind of copied that cover. I don't remember which one it is. All Hands on the Bad One, or one of those. Another classic you've all seen before, Surrealistic Pillow by the Jefferson Airplane. Also a great album. Just a neat cover. And my copy, it has on here, if I can find it, this is a Sundazed reissue, but they reprinted the original cover. Well, hell, I don't know, but somewhere on here it says to join the Jefferson Airplane fan club, write to some street address in San Francisco. One of these days I'm going to write a letter there and see if anything happens. If their fan club secretary is still sitting around waiting for applicants. Husker Du, New Day Rising, Dogs on the Beach or the Lake, or a big-ass swimming pool. I don't know. It's a cool cover. Album's okay. Husker Du's best album, which is way better than that one, is in Arcade. These guys walking around in a junkyard. I'm guessing those are the Huskers. But I like that. Good album cover. Great album. One of the last truly great albums ever released, in my opinion. Oh, okay. Sleigh Bells, Treats. This is a new album from, about 5 years back. Cheerleaders with their face blurred out. Cool album cover. I kind of bought this based on the cover. I'd seen it around. The album is not that good. Kind of crap, but it's okay. I play it every once in a while. It's some guy banging away on the guitar while some chick screams, and some of it's kind of melodic in a strange way, but I don't dig it out too often. The great and wonderful Funkadelic, their first album. Always loved that cover. There they are on the, this is their debut album. On the flip side, all their covers are pretty great. Here's a later one, Cosmic Slop, when they got the Pedro Bell started designing their covers after the like the fourth or fifth album. So those are always fun to look at, and that's a great album too. Everybody should have in their collection. Swamp Dogg, Rat On. I mean, do I have to explain this one? It's a guy riding a big giant rat, so who couldn't love that? Great album cover. Pretty darn good album too. Okay, Can. Tago Mago or Tago Mago. I don't know how you say it. One of the best albums of the 70s. Always love this. I love their logo for their name and the guy's brain and the stuff coming out of his mouth. So he's talking what he's thinking, I guess, is what that's supposed to represent. And on the back, you got the same guy or another guy with it's green instead of orange. Double album, incredible album from 1973. Pick it up if you don't have it. You'll be glad that you did. It's a wonder. Numero Records, I talk about them a lot. They do a lot of compilations of old soul, like Unknown or soul labels and garage rock labels and stuff. This is the Dynamic label, which was a San Antonio label. If you love soul music of the 60s and 70s, you need to go to Numero's website right now. You'll be glad you did, and you'll be cursing me because you'll be spending a bunch of money. This is just, I just love that picture. It just kind of captures the essence of kind of raw gut bucket soul from the 60s to me, live in performance, and probably some little seedy nowhere club in San Antonio or Austin. And who knows who this guy is, but because this is a various artist compilation with a bunch of people you never heard of, doesn't mean the music isn't great. There's a lot of great music on these Numero albums. And I think they have about 60 of them that they've released so far, and I've got probably about 25, 30 of them. Good stuff, but I love that cover. I have some Christmas albums in here, but I'll get to those. We'll do them. I mean, Christmas on June 1st, why not? This old Courier and Ives looking cover for Bob Dylan's Christmas album. I like this. Some people don't like this. I think me and Mr. Mayo said he wasn't crazy about this one, but I like it. And I love the cover too. So, and actually, if I remember correctly, because I haven't played it, yeah, the inner sleeve, these two guys from, probably a picture of some old guys from the 40s in Hibbing, Minnesota, where Dylan hails from. Or maybe it's a recent picture made to look like an old-timey picture, but I like the cover and I like the album. So there. Alrighty. Moving slowly right along. We'll take care of that in a little bit. Death Might Be Your Santa Claus, a record store day release of old spirituals and Christmas songs from 1905 to like 1930. Most of them you never heard of. There's a lot of blues and sort of cool old-timey Christmas songs, but I like that cover, and I don't know how well that's showing up with the glare. You're probably just seeing glare on all these albums. An incredible Christmas album, one of my favorites, Jimmy Smith Jazz Christmas 64. It's epic and wonderful and so good that sometimes I play it when it's not Christmas, but I just love that cover. That's 64 because it came out in 1964, and it's just sort of captures kind of 64, that modernist looks 60-ish Verve label. Great record. Pick that up if you don't have it. And along those lines, Kenny Burrell's also a wonderful Christmas album with these little multicolored snowflakes on there, I guess that is. One of my other favorite Christmas albums. This is not one of my favorite Christmas albums. It's actually pretty lame, but I got it for 50 cents. Kate Smith Christmas album. But I like the cover. This lady reminds me of Hyacinth Bouquet, or the Bucket Woman on Keeping Up Appearances, even though that's not who it is. And it also looks like the kind of Christmas albums that my parents would have had, or my grandparents even. And it's not, I mean, it's just some old lady. This came out in the 50s, so it's that old 40s, 50-ish type singing. It's actually pretty awful. I put it on for fun at Christmas, though. Another recent-ish album, and probably my favorite album cover of the last 20, 30 years, Stephen Wilson's How the Raven Refused to Learn to Sing, or title of it, but this is a good album. Almost great, but it's a really good album. So he's in some band called Porcupine Tree that Robert Z likes, and some others on here like. I've heard of them. I've never heard them, but if they're anything like this, they're probably worth checking out. But this is from what, a year ago, 2 years ago. But it's a great album, and I love that cover. So good album. I might even play that later today. The Who. This is what most people would consider the Who's worst album. This or one before it, Face Dances. But I always love that cover from 1982, The Who, It's Hard, and I like this album. I think The Who should have broken up in 1967 personally, but because I don't like most of their stuff afterwards at all. But I love their first three albums, and I think Tommy's pretty cool. But the stuff after that, I'm not a big fan of. But I always like this, even though it's not anywhere near the quality of their '60s stuff. Of course, Keith Moon was gone and all, so they probably should have broken up anyway. But speaking of which, a Who album I'm not that crazy about, even though it does have a few good songs. But I love this cover, Quadrophenia. The only thing is that in the mirror of the Vespa or scooter or whatever you call that thing, they got pictures of the Who that are current at the time. This album came out in 1973, but it's a rock opera about mods and rockers, so it's really harkened back to 64, 65, so they probably should have, in my opinion, because the Who were around in 65, they should have put 65 era pictures of the Who in the mirrors instead of 73 era, because that doesn't really fit in with mods and rockers. But anyway, they didn't listen to me, and I was 9 years old, so I didn't know their phone number back then. Another great jazz album, one of my favorites. If you're looking to get into jazz and don't know where to start, this would be a good one to start with. Songs from My Father by the Horace Silver Quintet, and that's his father, I guess, because Horace is quite a bit younger. Well, he's probably older than that guy is now, because I think this is 1966 album, 67 or 66, I forget. Really cool, and there's first song on there, and you'll be wondering where Steely Dan stole their idea for a song. And look no further, because they stole it from here. Ricky Don't Lose That Number. The first song on here, the beginning sounds just like that. And this came out quite a bit before Steely Dan's album. I like simple things on album covers too, for a lot of reasons. This is another one of the great jazz albums of all time. Just a simple shot of Coltrane, but for that, this is, if I was rating my favorite album covers, this might be number 1 or 2. I said London Calling. They might be in a punch out for the top spot there, but it's really just a picture of him a little off center. Either he's leaning forward or they chopped the camera angle. But I just love that picture. He just looks so earnest and resolute, and like he's got a job to do, and let's get to it. Something, I don't know. I just always really love this album cover, and of course the album is wonderful and great. The Tornadoes, Bustin' Surfboards. This is an old '60s album that was re-released on Sundays. This is on colored vinyl. Instrumental stuff, surf music. It's good. It's not anything essential, but I'm a sucker for those old Frankie and Annette, Bikini Beach, How to Stuff a Wild Bikini type movies. Anytime those things are on Gidget, I'll watch the hell out of them. So I always liked this era, even though this was right before I was born, but just sort of, Wally and Beaver at a beach party in 1960 or something on the coast of California. I've shown this before, but I think it's cool, so I'll show it again. Colored vinyl. Pretty good album of just some surf, instrumental, guitar rock. Like I said, it's nothing epic, but good stuff. I like that cover. I like that kind of cheesy, retro, good old days stuff. Sam Cooke. And that just sort of, like I said with Little Richard, that just sort of sums up Sam Cooke for me, that picture of him there. Wonderful, wonderful album. Just came out on Record Store Day. And I'm talking about that damn Lydia Loveless again, but I really like that album cover. And if you want to hear me talk about how great Lydia Loveless is, there's an hour's worth of video somewhere on here you can check out, so I won't go through that again. But I think that album cover is really cool. Here is Charlie Poole and the Highlanders, Record Store Day record from last year before last, I think. Old kind of country type stuff from like 1929. Uh, like I don't know, old timey music, which is, I'm not a big country fan, but this I kind of enjoy. But I just think that's a cool cover. So there you go. Velvet Underground. Everyone points to the iconic banana cover. This is their final album, if you don't count Squeeze, which you shouldn't, because Lou Reed and half the band wasn't around by that time. But Loaded, this is their final album from, what's this, 1970. Really good album, and I don't know, I always thought that was kind of a cool cover. So that's a Record Store Day pickup too that I picked up. What are we down to? We're almost there. Smile by the Beach Boys. Always liked that cover. And they actually had this ready to go back in '67 when Brian pulled the plug on the project. And this was, of course, one of those legendary mythic albums that finally got released. We don't even know if this was the way it would have been released at this point even. But I mean, finally got released about 3 or 4 years ago. And so they used the cover that they had from '67. I know me and Mr. Mayo did a review on Pet Sounds because he'd never really heard it and he didn't like it. So I would be really interested to have him sit down and listen to this and see what he makes out of this. If he didn't like Pet Sounds, I would just love to see what he makes of this thing, because I love the Beach Boys and I love Pet Sounds, and this thing I listen to, and there's parts of it that are brilliant, but overall I still don't really know how I feel about this album. So if you're listening, Joe, go pick that up and listen to it and give us a review of it. It would be cool. And of course, we'll end on the Beatles. I'm not going to show the British album covers because you all know them. I like all of those, though. I mean, the With the Beatles, which was Meet the Beatles Here, just the really cool, sort of arty, French new wave influenced with the half shadow faces and all on. Beatles for Sale, just a great picture. They really don't have a bad one. Revolver, Rubber Soul, they're all great. Even the sort of stark postmodern kind of minimalism of the White Album, if you want to get pretentious, which I just did. I really like this one. Just came out. What was this? Last year, right? Christmas. I like this cover better than the first BBC. Music on both of them is really good, of course, but I mean, I thought that was a really cool picture. Let's see, my favorite album of all time. It's also one of my favorite album covers, and this is one that's just a really simple. The art department at Capitol probably spent a day on this design and these pictures, if that, but somehow it's done. There's a whole where I'm talking about Beatles' second album and Dave Dexter and how this was just a thrown together album that, against all odds is just the best album ever in my opinion. It should have been a mishmash and a mess, but it all works despite itself and the conditions it was born under. But these pictures just work for me. It just captures the that first blush of Beatlemania and when the band was new and just starting out, even though this technically would be like their third album or so, but and it's not really even an album proper, but anyway. Oh yeah, let's do this one too, which is I just always like that cover. Not much of an album, it's just interviews, and it's not even that. It's mainly some guy, narrator, talking about the Beatles, and there's nothing on here that you wouldn't have already known, but I always did love the cover of that. I always like to show this one off as much as I can. This is my Butcher cover that I've had since about 1978. It's a real thing. It's a second state peeled. Well, nowadays album covers, just anything goes, and so it's kind of hard to realize how shocking this must have been, because even this was before Alice Cooper and Black Sabbath and the later heavy metal and Jimi Hendrix with the naked girls on um, um, the third album, not Axis and not Are You Experienced, but Electric Ladyland. So this must have seemed incredibly strange in 1966. I can only imagine. I'm not sure how many of these actually got into the stores and how long they were out in the stores before they got pulled. I know some of them did, or I think some of them did. But on top of all that, I just think it's a kind of grisly, disturbing picture. Uh, they John looks like he's having too much fun. So does George. Um, but it's a cool, cool shot. So what's left? What's left? Oh, the Rolling Stones, Hot Rocks. That was my first Rolling Stones album, and I always liked that cover. And that's a really great greatest hits album collection. But the shadows with the lights behind them of their head, which Travis Robinson likes, and talked about Dylan and all. McCartney too. This is my favorite McCartney album cover. That goofy look, or like he's real put off with something, or he's goofing around, or he's shocked. And it's a cool shot because you got the shadows behind him, of his head behind him, and then you got a half and half Paul on the back. So one of my favorite McCartney albums too, but a cool cover. So there you go. The wall is all my Ringo albums this week, which isn't many. There's 5 of them. All my Rolling Stone albums, which is a pitiful collection. I'm missing a ton of stuff. I don't really care about the Rolling Stones past 1969. I know Bobby Gass will be flipping out over that, but I think they should have broken up the day Brian Jones quit, because they never did anything worthwhile afterwards, by and large, even though they did a few good things, in my opinion, but never as good as the 60s. And then I had some gaps, so Shangri-La's, Patty Duke, and Lydia Loveless autographed album. So I'll have another wall up next week. Hope everyone has a good weekend. And VC has been slow lately, so hope people start making videos again. So I miss seeing some of my old friends. Have a good one.